listen to this story. Canadian lawmakers, well, they've voted overwhelmingly to declare China as committing genocide against its Uighur minority. The motion, which also calls on the 2022 Winter Olympics to be moved from Beijing, passed Canada's parliament by 266 votes to 0 on Monday, with support from all the opposition parties. But you want to know, don't you, what did the left-wing Premier Justin Trudeau have to say on this, the Prime Minister? Well, what did he have to say? Well, let's bring in my panel. From Sydney, Federal Politica editor now, ooh la la, of the Daily Telegraph, James Morrow. And from Adelaide, host of Bernardi here on Friday nights, the indefatigable Cory Bernardi. I've got to go, the Prince of Woke, dear old Justin Trudeau, the Prime Minister of Canada. It was a headline in the papers. I thought, when I saw that in relation to the Canadian Parliament, that, you know, finally we're getting somewhere, you know, some national, international attention on the Uyghur issue. But he, in fact, abstained from the vote, Cory, didn't turn up.
Yeah, but, Peter, it wasn't just him. It was his entire cabinet, bar one lackey who was sent in to let them all know that they were abstaining. This is perhaps the most pathetic government in the history of the Five Eyes nations. What is going on in China with the Uyghurs is an absolute disgrace. I think it is a blight on the rest of the world that we're not talking about it because we're too afraid to offend China. I remain less convinced about the Winter Olympics, but there are plenty of people out there who say we shouldn't participate in it because of the human rights abuses that are taking place over there. But that's a debate, I think, that's still ongoing. But it took the rest of the Canadian Parliament, not the Trudeau government, to show some spirit and some spine in these matters.
Yeah, the opposition leader, Erin O'Toole, had this to say. There's real suffering going on in China. We're free traders. While we're free traders, our values are not for sale. That's gutsy stuff. And we saw, didn't we, James, Joe Biden last week excuse Beijing's treatment of the Uyghurs. He called it sort of different cultural norms. Why are all these so-called progressive leaders in the West so weak-kneed when it comes to calling out human rights abuses by China?
It's really amazing to me, Peter. I mean, I'm old enough to remember when the big left cause celeb was Free Tibet, you know, and they were all, none of them were afraid to go and call out China. Now, I suspect that in an awful lot of cases right now, the issue is money. But I think, you know, because China has become such a huge market for Hollywood, for other sorts of industries that pump money into the campaigns of left-wing politicians, and let's not even forget about, you know, 10% for the big guy with Joe Biden, that there is, you know, just that simply an awful lot of people have been bought off. Now, I don't know about Justin Trudeau, but that the left itself has now got a huge moral blind spot on this. And I think the other half of that is that, you know, the left, because they have become so culturally relativist, they cannot actually see that, you know, another society is doing something wrong because they've become so focused on what's wrong with the West. But I'll tell you what, Canada has an awful lot of people from Hong Kong there who must be absolutely horrified at what the government is doing in terms of kowtowing to mainland China.
And look, it's emotion in the parliament. You know, they weren't putting sort of troops on the ground to defend the Uyghurs there, but it's a matter of principle. And clearly in Canada, your principles can be bought.